This is our tradition, good work with the name of God. All to please join your hands for Saraswati Vandana.
Sir, audio, please audio.
Sorry, sir.
कुन्देन्दुतुषारहार धवला या शुभ्रवस्त्रामृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेतपद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतं शङ्करं प्रभृतिभिः देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती
Welcome. Is one of the fastest growing in India. We have a very small video about our Faisal sir to please play the video.
Okay. Is it audible?
Yes, sir. Sir, play screen share.
Now it is the high time to welcome all our eminent authorities. I request Director Sir, Director SIRTE and Group Coordinator at the stage. He is a dynamic visionary leader in the field of academics with more than 27 years of experience and have the rarest PhD in the field of data security. I request Director Sir, eminent guests.
Yeah, Siddharth, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I'm Dr. Rajiv Srivastav. I'm a director in SIRT Excellence, and also I'm group coordinator of entire SAGE group for digital media affairs. The SAGE is, as the video was depicting, is one of the biggest group of Central India. It has education division, it has a construction section, it has power section. In education, we have two universities, one in Indore, one in Bhopal. Then we got three engineering institutions. Then we have three MBA schools. Then we have two pharmacy. Then we have two international category of schools and one diploma school. And in construction, this is undoubtedly the leading group of the Central India. We have produced more than 25,000 houses in this particular area and the vicinity. In power also, we have the projects in entire Central India and also some part in Maharashtra. So I feel a proud member of this SAGE group, and being the group coordinator of the entire SAGE group again gives me more proud. And as a director and group coordinator, I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Vikas Vithal Shinde, Professor Mechanical Engineering Department, Vishwaniketan I-MEET Kharagpur. And I also welcome to the other speakers and dignitaries who are attending this function. I also welcome to the participants of this program of one-day e-international workshop on advances and emerging trends in environment, materials and nanotechnology. And I also take this opportunity to congratulate to the organizers, head Dr. Dharmen Tyagi, Mechanical Engineering Department, and other senior members along with his team members. Thank you. You can proceed, Dr. Dharmen Tyagi, to continue with this program.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for your A to Z. It always do such things. Now, I would like to introduce our chief, Vikas Vithal Shinde. Dr. Shinde is currently working in the mechanical at Vishwaniketan I-MEET Kharagpur, Mumbai University. He completed his PhD learning PBL Denmark under in PBL. Sir is the first PhD and across the India awarded by PBL. Sir is also working as Center of Excellence in project-based learning. I request Sir to please say few words.
Vikas, sir, unmute. Please.
Hello, whether I am
Yes,
audible?
Yes,
They are
sir.
audible, but sound.
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, thank you for introduction.
I will request just
Video is not visible.
Vikas, yeah, just turn on your video for a moment only.
Yeah, I will start a screen
So,
and
you know-
also, yeah.
Yeah, our gathering will be able to see you at least for a moment.
Yes, no issues. I will. Have you given me authority to share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I will share the screen, so let it appear on the desktop and the screen. Then I will share my video also. Yeah. How much time I have?
Sir, you have only 10 to 15 minutes, sir.
Yeah, okay. No issue. Can you see my screen properly?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
it is visible.
Yeah, now I'll share my video also. Can you see me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Vikas Shinde from Pune. Yeah.
Thank you
I
very much.
just, yeah. Thanks for inviting me, Dr. Faisal Ahmad and the management of SAGE group of institutions. I will share my thoughts within 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. I have been told that this is the gathering where the students, teacher, and eminent personalities from the industries also involved. So I thought that I should talk more about project-based learning and how it can empower our stakeholders in the education. So with that mindset, I will start my talk. I currently work as a director, which is introduced as a guest here. In a project-based learning, I work as a director. But before I directly go to my topic, let me tell you about my Bhopal connection. Bhopal बहुत दिल के पास है मेरे, because I have spent a lot of time in Bhopal, because I was pass out. I am pass out from MNIT Bhopal, and I was one of the topper in our branch also in maintenance. And Dr. Faisal Ahmad and we were colleague at that time, and that association is still on 20 years down the line. I also very much associated with MP because I was also working in a Gwalior in a MITS for 2 years. From that period, during that period, I was also nominated as a young scientist during that period. Then in 2010, I got an opportunity to go to Aalborg University, Denmark, which is a very old university established in 1974. There I got a chance to work with the UNESCO chair, PBL. And incidentally, I'm the first PhD in PBL in India. And this PBL, PhD is basically for India. Since I completed my PhD and during my PhD, and so far I have trained 3,500 plus teachers across India. I travel across India. The sole purpose is to spread an awareness about PBL. Also, I work with numerous students because I have that passion, Jazba, to train and empower teacher and the students so that whole India gets benefited. And with that intention, I actually started my PhD. And whatever the experiences I had, I will share with you in 10-15 minutes. So this is what I see is that normally students and the teachers are more inclined towards the job. But I always believe that instead of doing a job, you should have a career. So there is a difference between a job and the career, because you build your career around your passion and your habits. But the job is something is one of the what I can say is a compromise to live the life. But when you build your career, it's almost based on your passion and hobbies. So this is what I did. Somewhere I was not happy because education system in India mostly is different than the European counterpart. And what I will try to see that some of the European points which are the key lagging behind the education system. And then somehow I will explain how we can empower our students, teacher, and the institutes so that we will have a global name in a few years down the line. And also see how you can build your job. Instead of a job, you can build your career. So if you see normally in India, we have this, that the teacher is coming into the class and mostly the students are listening. If the students are here, they also know that what they are doing. So more often the teacher is at the center of everything. But what the Ralph Tyler says, that learning takes place through the active behavior of the students. It is what he does, he learns. It means that the focus, it also means that the shift should be from teachers to the students. so that students gets benefited. And when the students gets benefited, every teacher be very happy. I'm also a teacher, so the same thing we are following in our institute also, and same thing I have been asking to other teachers and the students to practice also. And I'll share a few of this in a short span. More about focusing on the learning in engineering, because engineering is more nowadays is a question answer mark cycle. I usually call as a QAM cycle. What happens? Students are given a notes, books, PowerPoint presentations, and they have been asked a question to solve. And students gives the answers to that questions and score some marks, and then we say that he's an engineer. But it's more than that. We have a lot of focus on the grades. And we also see that most of the things that are available in the books, that the same knowledge is being reciprocated in most of the institutes. And the students have less interest in learning, and then the skills are very much lacking. There are so many reports, if you see the Indian reports, there are so many reports where the people, they have been said that engineering students are lacking key employability skills. Why it is happening? Because our education focus on rote learning. If you see the Bloom's taxonomy, and if you see the lower part of the pyramid, our most of the focus is on the knowledge, and it's more on comprehension side. And our examinations are only testing students' ability to remember and reproduce. So the focus somehow has to be shifted on the upper part of the pyramid. And that is why it is necessary. That's why it's necessary to shift from a teacher center to the student center, and from the knowledge based to the design based or evaluation based, or more on doing the things. If you see any traditional pedagogy, which is based on more on reading and listening. But if you see the science behind it, if you listen for continuously 1 hour, you only remember 20%. And there is a science also that if you cannot focus more than 15 minutes. So imagine a teacher delivering the best lecture of his life, and you only listen for 20%, you only remember 20% of it. So that's why it's more nowadays, the focus is on active learning. So if you see the active learning domain, where you study, if you do the real things, you remember 90% of it. And that is how the PBL is based on. PBL is based on doing the real things. So what is PBL? PBL is nothing but either you call as a problem-based learning or project-based learning. So both philosophies are one and the same. These are the two acronyms which are very, very popular around the world regarding the PBL. But basically why PBL is required? Because if you see the skills which are demanded by the industry, it's more problem solving, application of a knowledge. It's more about the teamwork, designing and using the modern tools to design, and then considering the environmental sustainability in that designs. And so in a nutshell, if education system are taken caring of these skills, engineers will have more employability. So through the traditional classroom teaching, these skills will never get employed. So my emphasis is always on improving on the skills, and PBL is one of the tools by which you can empower yourself in these skills. So if you go to any kind of a job interviews, I also take some interviews because I also have some company, I have a startup. So when I ask students, okay, what you can do for the company, he said that I have a 60%, 70% mark. Then I said, what you can do with that marks? Marks are important just to appear for the interview, but the skills are more important for the industries. So the focus on that part. So I'll tell you a 1-minute story. If you see in a picture, there are 3 students. They have received the award. Why that award has been received by them? Because they have developed an onboard hydrogen development machine. So this is how you can get prestigious awards. Also, you can empower. These students are now well placed in different companies. So if you implement PBL properly, there are many incentives. So what is the difference, fundamental difference? In traditional set, we have a central role as a teacher. But in a problem-based learning or say project-based learning, you have students in the center. In problem-based learning, new knowledge is created, new information is created, as compared to the traditional knowledge, whether existing information has been given to the student. existing traditional education is more on input based. The classrooms are there, teachers are there, books are there, labs are there, and that is used to improve the existing knowledges. But problem based learning is more outcome based, where the students produce different outcomes like artifacts, products, processes, drawings, posters, softwares, algorithms. There are so many things which students can produce through project based learning, and that is precisely a aim of outcome based education. So if you see that PBL has a learning cycle in which students learn by different ways, classroom instructions, labs, learning in a team, learning from the peers, learning from the different tutors. So all this happens in a one single cycle of PBL. And that is more immersive learning. Immersive learning means it is more skill-based, more intuitive. It keeps your brain always in hunt. So your cognitive abilities gets improved. That's why PBL is very, very important.
1 minute left, sir.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm almost done. So morely, these are some of the PBL principles where the students work on a challenging problems. They work in a group, so they learn together, they share workload together. This is a classical PBL cycle where it is shown that students work on a real life problem, they solve the problem, and they come out of the important outcomes. One of the model where the students can build their career is the international model, where in very few days, 42 days, you can have international exposure. So these are some of the universities where we have international tie-ups. So 14 international universities we have a tie-up with. These are some of the glimpses where the students have very immersive experiences in an international environment. They also get some certification from which helps them for MS and the PhD. And this is how teachers also are part of it. And teachers also go to the international universities and they empower themselves. So students and teachers empower, institutes automatically gets empowered. And this is just I wanted to say. And I wish good luck to the workshop and let the students and the staff members have a wonderful experience in this workshop. Thank you very much for inviting me for this small talk. My motto is let's work together to make education meaningful. If you have any doubts or queries about PBL or anything about the career prospects, and institute also can have implementation of a PBL, I am available for all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please take care of yourself in a Corona time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your precious time. Your information about the PBL, it will be help our students and our participants a lot. Now, I am also thankful to Director sir for giving us this opportunity. Okay, now moving further, I would like to introduce our speaker of the session, Dr. Farha Khaliq. Dr. Farha Khaliq is a MBBS, MD, and PhD. Presently, Dr. Farha is a professor in Department of Physiology in University College of Medical Sciences and GTB Hospital, Delhi. She has over 18 years of teaching experience at undergraduate and postgraduate levels. She has won many awards. She has won Oration Award for the best research work in cardiovascular physiology for the year 2012. She has also won the silver medal for the best paper of the session in 10th annual conference of UP chapter of obstetrics and gynecology. I will not take too much time. I would like to invite Dr. Farha to say her topic overview. Over to you, ma'am.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself.
Being mute. Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Actually, I was trying to unmute myself. Thanks a lot, first of all, to the organizers, to the group, the Saga group, and to the organizers of this workshop for giving me this opportunity to present here today. Now, I'll start sharing my screen, Mr. Paul. Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Okay, so today I'll be presenting on the environment, effects of the environment on the human health. So this in front of you is projected data from World Health Organization. We all are aware of WHO these days. It is so much in the news. And this data they have projected that every year around 7 million deaths occur due to pollution. It is air pollution. It can be outdoor pollution or indoor pollution, right? And this lower figure shows us the world map where it has been projected that how many deaths are out of these 7 million, how many are occurring in different parts of the world. And we can see the maximum concentration, this black area, the maximum concentration of the deaths or the maximum amount of deaths are in Southeast Asia region where our country lies. So you can imagine that among the world countries, the maximum are taking place, maximum amount of pollution is in this region where we live. So the physical environment which is surrounding us affects our body, our health a lot. And this includes everything which is there surrounding us. It can be air, the air we respire, we inspire so much air all the time. So that is affecting our respiratory tract. We have water. If the water has got impurities, it is going to cause diarrhea, dysentery, and many other diseases. The soil, it has number of metals and other impurities dissolved in it, and as a result, it causes number of diseases. Apart of it, from it is housing, radiation, noise, light, waste, and so many things are affecting us in one or the other way. Now here I want to stress that all the substances actually are poisons. We cannot say that this is a poison and this is not a poison because it is just the dose of any substance that differentiates a poison and a remedy. If you take anything in excess, it becomes a poison. So anything around us can be a poison according to the dose. Now the sources of pollution, because that is the major thing which we are coming into contact with, is natural sources and human activities. By natural sources, we mean forest fires or volcanic eruptions, etc. And human activities, there are a number of human activities and they are increasing day by day, like industrial processes, motor vehicles. These all things are constantly increasing and that is increasing to our pollution. Now, most of us can relate to this tragedy, which occurred a few years back. As we are from Bhopal, most of you are from Bhopal, participants, you can relate to this tragedy, which occurred in 1984. Yes, you have guessed it right. It is a Bhopal gas disaster. And we all know that the poisonous gas, methyl isocyanate, it leaked and it got damage, so much damage to the health of human beings, and so many people, more than 5 lakhs were exposed to this poisonous gas. Almost 20,000 people have died and more than 1 lakh people are still suffering from this disaster. This shows that how hazardous a chemical can be if it is released or if it is, if people are exposed to it, how hazardous that chemical can be. So first and foremost, I would like to concentrate on air pollution because that is the major pollution which is affecting us day by day. Air pollution, as I already told you, most common cause is the industries, which is releasing so much of polluted air into the environment. It is due to burning, forest burning or fields burning, which are taking place these days quite a lot. And the most important one is the vehicles. The vehicles are constantly increasing day in and day out, and you see that so much pollution is due to these vehicles. So all these are causing so much effect on our health. And these were the clippings in most of the newspapers, at least in Delhi. We have so much since few years it is coming that so much pollution is increased that it has crossed a lot. The safety limit has been crossed a lot since number of years. But leave aside the capital city. There are other cities also in India which are very much affected by this poisonous effect of air pollution. And when the world's most polluted cities data was collected, it was seen that out of the top 10 polluted cities of the world, 7 were in India. You can see this data. 7 cities out of top 10 cities are in India. So you can see how much polluted the air which we breathe is and how much it is affecting our body. So the most important thing which is there in the air which we breathe is the particulate matter. It is a complex mixture of airborne particles that differ in size, origin, and chemical composition. And usually they are very small in size. They are less than 10 microns in size. And they are classified as particulate matter or suspended particulate matter or respirable particulate matter, depending upon their size and other things. They are classified. You must have seen in the newspapers that RSPM level has increased this much this year and SPM level has increased this much. So these are the suspended particulate matter and respirable particulate matter. Now this figure just shows the size of these particles. This is the hair, single hair, human hair shown here, and it has got a diameter of about 50 to 70 micrometer. This is a one sand particle which has a diameter of 90 micrometer. And you can see the particulate matter is less than 10 or even less than 2, which is inhaled in our body. So depending upon what is the size inhaled, accordingly the lungs are being affected. If the size is less than 10 microns, then it is fine particulate, which is inhalable, and it affects the upper part of our respiratory tract. If the size further decreases to less than 2 microns, then they are fine particulate respirable, and they are affecting deeper. They are going deeper inside our lungs and affecting the lower respiratory part. And if the size further increases, maybe micro or nano size, then it then crosses the membranes of the lungs. It goes inside our blood and then reaches to other tissues and affects almost everywhere it reaches and affects our body. So here you can see in this that how air, what we inhale, has got different sizes of particles, and the smallest particles, they easily traverse the membrane, go to our brain and other portions of the body. Here you can see that from the lungs, they are going into the blood, and from blood they are circulating to various places, and they reach all the organs of our body. So depending upon the size, the smaller the particle, the more is its intensity to reach different tissues. So once they enter our body, they can affect almost every system of our body. Cardiovascular system, gastrointestinal tract, and almost every tissue. Of course, respiratory system is the most affected out of all these, but almost every tissue can be affected due to these poisonous chemicals and poisonous substances present in the air, which is inhaled. The commonest thing, the oxides of nitrogen which we inhale, causes bronchiolitis. That means the bronchioles, the passages. See, this is the trachea and this is the bronchioles, the main bronchus and the further bronchioles, the divisions of the lung. These gets swollen up. And once they get swollen up, the passage for the air is very much decreased. So the person is not able to take up air properly and the air transport will be affected. Similar is the case with sulfur dioxide, which is released and which is present in our air, which we inspire. This also causes constriction of the pathways. We can see here, this is the normal passageway, and this is the passageway which has been inflamed, which has been swollen, and there is a lot of mucus deposited inside, thus leading to asthma and chronic obstructive, COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. This is very common due to these pollutants and also chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which occurs due to obstruction of the passage and thus hindrance in the flow of air. Needless to say, what are the effects of smoking on our lungs? We all know that how injurious it is for our health. The similar effects are caused by smoking. How the passage is narrowed due to smoking, how the mucus gets collected due to different constituents present in the tobacco smoke, and how our alveoli, you can see these alveoli, the small air passages, alveoli, from where the exchange of gases takes place. These alveoli, these are the alveolar walls, and you can see the disruption of these alveolar walls due to the smoking or due to different pollutants. These intercellular walls get disrupted. Here you can see the normal air passage and the lungs. Once the air comes inside the lungs, how our alveoli, they get expanded and they contract, and that's how our inspiration and expiration normally takes place. And we need efficient system for expanding the alveoli to release the air, whatever the carbon dioxide filled air is coming from the body, that needs to be released. So this should be working efficiently in the normal circumstances. And this is the condition, what happens. This is a normal alveoli shown in this figure. And here you can see the distorted alveoli, which occurs in chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. And once they get distorted, there is very little space for the air to be transported across, because air needs to be transported. Substances, oxygen needs to be transported to the blood. And here the air trapping is seen very clearly, how the air is trapped. We are unable to expire out the carbon dioxide, and the damage keeps on increasing and increasing, and our airways gets dilated and disrupted. So there are certain occupations which cannot help, like policemen, a number of other occupations who are exposed to these ill effects of the pollutants because of their occupation. So quite a lot. I have taken these few newspaper cuttings, which come quite often in the newspapers, that how traffic policemen are so vulnerable to the effects of pollution. It's a silent killer, and they, because of their duties, they're constantly standing at the transections of the road and busy traffics where so much pollution are being released from the vehicles and so much is there in the air, and they're constantly inhaling it. So this is one occupation which is quite vulnerable to the effects of pollution, and hence we conducted a study on these traffic policemen, and we observed that these people, as compared to control, had quite a lot of respiratory symptoms. The frequency of respiratory symptoms of coughing, shortness of breath, and irritation in respiratory tracts was much higher as compared to controls in these people. Obviously, they are very much exposed to these pollutants, so all the symptoms were very much increased in them. In addition to it, we conducted some respiratory function tests in them, the lung functions like functional forced vital capacity, or expiratory volumes, or expiratory flow rates. So all these, you can see these blue bars are showing these values in the traffic policeman as compared to control. So that all the lung functions, almost all the lung functions were very much impaired in these traffic policemen as compared to control. In addition to seeing the effects of pollution, we also study the effect on their auditory pathway. By auditory pathway, we mean the hearing pathway. Since they are standing in such a noisy environment all the time, so it was affecting their hearing impairment also. They had an increased threshold of hearing as well. The study got published in International Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine. And we observed that there was, apart from obviously so much impairment in lung, there was impairment in their hearing as well. The another profession which we studied, occupation which we studied, was the petrol pump workers. Now these petrol pump workers, they are constantly exposed to the fumes of petrol and diesel which is emerging from the for what they are filling. And what we found out that again all the lung volumes and capacities here is very much diminished as we compare it with the controls. The lung functions were greatly damaged in these petrol pump workers. And these workers are, since they're constantly exposed to the fumes of petrol and diesel, it is affecting the lungs, obviously. That is the first thing which is coming and countering these particles, ultimately causing lung cancer also in long-term exposure. Apart from it, heart problems, carbon monoxide poisoning, brain damage, and all other tissues are being affected once the small particles from these fumes enter into the blood, reaches the other tissues, all the tissues, they affect almost all the tissues. So pneumoconiosis is a disease of lung, which is characterized by fibrosis, and it is usually caused by the mineral dust which usually a person inhales, like silica and asbestosis, the most common one, while it is there in all other, many other things also, both inorganic and organic dust. And when these dusts, they get accumulated in the lungs, you can see this figure, that how this normal lung is with all the alveoli, as I told you earlier also, and how this coal dust, this is an example of coal dust, known as coal workers pneumoconiosis, also known as black lung, how it gets deposited in the alveoli, destroying the alveoli, altering its normal function of carriage of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So you can see in this particular figure, you can see that how when constantly the person is inhaling such poisonous substances, the normal lung gets damaged day by day, and interstitial lung disease is a lung disease which occurs, which hampers the expansion of the lungs. So the lungs is unable to expand properly, and obviously then the lungs will be affected. Similarly, in some people who are customized to snorting, they keep on snorting and all with methamphetamine, etc. Ultimately, their lungs collapse after a long duration. They collapse also. So dusts are of various types. It can be to coal, silica, asbestos, iron, or cane, organic dust like cane fibers, cotton dust, and most important is tobacco. Tobacco dust also causes a type of pneumoconiosis known as tuberculosis. These are all the varieties of diseases which cause due to a particular type of dust, and tobacco can also lead to lung cancer. This is one of the patients of silicosis. That is when the silica is deposited in the lungs. Here you can see the structure of the silica being deposited in the lungs. And silica is the substance which is present mostly in the sand particles. And these sand particles, the people who are working with these sand particles, like the brick kiln workers, these are the kiln where bricks are being manufactured. So the brick kiln workers, they are constantly exposed to sand. They're working with it all the time. And you know that these days so much construction work is going on everywhere, and there's a lot of production of bricks and all. So these are the brick kilns, and these workers are constantly exposed to silica. So we tried to explore these workers, and we studied these workers also to find out what is their health effect of these brick kilns. And this paper was published in Human and Experimental Toxicology. And here we studied the pulmonary functions, oxidative stress, and even we studied their DNA, how it is being damaged in these workers. And what we concluded is that silica was being deposited in their lungs, which led to severe impairment of their lung functions. Apart from it, there was increase in oxidative stress and DNA damage. By oxidative stress, we mean that increased oxygen, certain oxygen molecules are there in the body, which have unpaired electrons. And since they have unpaired electrons, they have a tendency to bind with other molecules, and these are known as free radicals. As well as there in our body, there are certain antioxidants which try to fight with these free radicals. So if the free radicals are more than the fighting capacity of our body constituents, antioxidants, then the oxidative stress increases, and that damages number of organs of our body. So in these cases, oxidative stress was increased. Now, next thing, which is very common these days, and the poisoning you come to know quite often, is the heavy metal poisoning. So a lot of heavy metals are affecting our body. And if we go, these heavy metals, they're extracted from earth, and they have widespread distribution. And they have a tendency to accumulate in the selected tissues of our human body. And they have a potential to be toxic even at minor levels of exposure. So we have to be very careful when we are dealing with heavy metals. If we see lead, people have an occupational exposure to lead as well as non-occupational exposure. By non-occupational exposure can be in general public. We all may be exposed to lead due to various ways. There are paints on the toys. The surface paints on the toys are due to lead, maybe is because of that. The stagnant water in the water pipes, that causes mixing of lead in those from there. Injection of gasoline, cooking in the vessels and all of these types. So there are a number of other things. Leave aside the occupational exposure, even we general public are very much exposed to lead. And once we are exposed to it, it is usually interchanged in 3 compartments of our body, taken up by the blood, goes to the soft tissues, and also the mineralized tissues like bones and teeth. But the most damage it does is to the children. It causes permanent learning disabilities and delayed growth. So our children, if they're exposed to lead, they are in great harm. You can see here these yellow lines developing on the teeth, curtain line, they are due to lead exposure, excessive lead exposure, and the wrist drop and foot drop, which is observed in this population. Coming to the next poisonous substance, that is mercury. It affects our brain, nerves, heart, and cardiovascular system. Mercury, how do we get exposed by mercury? See, the mercury gets, the number of wastes is drained from the industries, and this is drained to the water bodies. Similarly, the rainwater rainwater also contains some mercury, which comes down to the soil and it gets deposited in the soil. So the vegetables also, when it grows in this type of soil, they are contaminated with the mercury. So all these things, when consumed, the water substances, all these vegetables which are grown in this contaminated soil, they all contain mercury, and that is affecting our body. Arsenic is the most common cause of heavy metal poisoning. Smelting process, galvanization, tobacco smoke, paints, all these are the sources of arsenic, and it causes multiple organ dysfunction. Many organs are written here, all these organs are affected due to the exposure of arsenic. Again, another metal which is very much affecting us is cadmium. Most common source is tobacco smoking. Apart from it, batteries, metal coatings, electroplating, and which is affecting all these organs of ours. Now, copper processing industry is also, the people who are working there are also exposed to a number of, they're constantly exposed to copper. So they are affected, the various organs are affected, their immune mechanisms are affected, and there are many reports which are saying that cancer develops in copper smelters. So we try to study these workers, the copper processing industry, and we try to study their pulmonary functions, their oxidative stress level, and we have seen that even the DNA was damaged in these workers, apart from the involvement of pulmonary functions. So we observed that there was impairment of lung functions, and there was increase in oxidative stress, as I told you, and DNA damage was also observed in these workers. Another environmental hazard which we all know is creating a lot of nuisance is the plastic. It is there everywhere. We all are using it, apart from so many bans, but still people are using it, and it is destroying so much the environment, the animals, the human being, everyone is being affected due to this plastics. So what is the main cause of the damage, what it is causing? All these plastics which we are constantly throwing day by day, it is being collected and then they are destroyed in the incinerators. You can see in this figure, this is the incinerator, they burn these plastics. And once they are burned, the smoke which is liberated from these incinerators, they contain all these poisonous gases, carbon monoxide, methane, carbon dioxide, aldehyde, so many poisonous gases as you can see here. They are liberated from these incinerators due to burning of plastics, and they are affecting almost every organ of our body. So we also studied the pulmonary functions and oxidative stress in workers exposed to styrene in the plastic factory. Because styrene is a volatile organic compound which is used in factories to synthesize the plastic products. So these are the ones, since they are volatile, they're constantly inhaled by the workers there, and they were exposed to the ill effects of the styrene. So here also, we observed that they were affected, the lung functions were affected, they were reduced, and there was increased level of oxidative stress in them, which was damaging their lungs. Now this is welding, which maybe people say that everyone is not exposed, only the workers will be exposed. But we see so much construction work taking place everywhere, and the arc light is being emitted. And any a person who comes in contact with this arc light, they are exposed to this arc, and their eye is basically exposed, and that causes arc eye, which is irritation of the eye, pain also, reddening, tears come from the eye, and that damages the eye to a extent. And the workers, they are affected by even the welding fumes, which affects their lungs. Now, lastly, I would like to say, because I'm discussing about the environment, so in our environment, the most common thing which is coming these days in our environment is the mobile phones. We all are exposed to it. We all know its side effects. It is impairing our eyes. It is impairing our posture. The cervical spondylitis is so much these days because of constant use of the mobile phones. But the most important damage which it is doing is the radiations which are emitting from these mobile phones, and they are affecting our brain. So we conducted the study of these also, especially in children, and we observed that the mobile phones were affecting slightly their auditory conduction. Although that much we did not find that much significant effect on these studies, but cognition was also slightly impaired. And we have many reports on the mobile phone use and its exposure and how much it is damaging the different organs of our body. Now coming to the protective measures, the most important aspect, because what can be done? We are constantly exposed to these things. So protective measures can be classified under two heads, the medical measures and the engineering measures. Since most of you are from the engineering background, I thought I should discuss this because that is more important for you. As far as medical measures are concerned, regular checkups are required, and health education is very important. Everyone should know how to protect themselves from the hazards of such pollution and such environment, and how to correctly use the protective devices. That is most important. As far as engineering measures are concerned, the designing of the building, as far as factories and all are concerned, the general cleanliness, ventilation, lighting, that is very, very important. Most important, I should say, is the ventilation. If the air is properly ventilated in the rooms and in the areas, then whatever fumes are coming out, they just flow away and you are safe. Quite reduced. I mean, your effect is quite reduced. Another thing is mechanization, that as much as possible, the factories and all should use mechanization. That means the least exposure of a person to a chemical or anything, so that they are not exposed and they are not affected by it. Ventilation, of course, I've told you, and the protective devices. All the protective devices should be worn at all these places where person is exposed. The mask, the gloves, the eye protection, etc. That is very, very essential. Nowadays, every one of us are using these protective devices due to COVID. So at least we are protected from many other pollutants also because of this. Okay. So I'll end this here. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, madam, for such a wonderful and informative session. On behalf of Sagar Group of Institutions, I would like to share the certificate of appreciation. This is a certificate for you from our institute.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Can we ask any question?
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, madam, I want to know that if this testing of these metals, what are the in which institutes this testing of these scattering of particulate matter can be done?
Okay, see, whatever studies we did along in collaboration with Central Pollution Control Board. So CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board, has all the apparatus for this. The air analyzers are there and all that. So they used to go and they are all portable machines. They used to take it there, keep it there for some time and analyze it in their labs. So that can be done. And there are a number of other apparatus like spectroscopy, spectrophotometry, etc. Gas analyzers, a lot of things are there. And there are a number of centers which are doing it. For us, we collaborated with CPCB, Central Pollution Control Board.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
Anyone else, if want to ask any questions?
I think there is a no. Anyone want to question from the audience side?
Next one, Mr.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
So now we have come to the end of first session. I would like to thank all the directors of the institutes, deputy directors, deans, faculty members, subject experts from the different institutions and research scholars to grace this occasion with their presence. I request you all to join the second session from the 2 p.m. The link will be shared in the same group. Okay, that's all from this session. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.